I'm Allison, 28, and the pain of rejection still stings fresh in my chest. The annual Mason family retreat at Harbor Cove Resort was supposed to be our bonding time, but this year, my parents claimed there wasn't enough space for me. A 7-bedroom beachfront mansion suddenly too small? Later, I discovered the truth: they needed my room for Natalie's new boyfriend Tyler. It wasn't the first time my younger sister took precedence, but it would definitely be the last. What they didn't know was that I had already set a plan in motion that would change our family dynamic forever. Before I tell you what happened, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Hit like and subscribe to join me on this journey of finally standing up for myself. I've always been the responsible one. While many of my colleagues at Horizon Marketing were out partying on weekends, I was often at my desk, fine-tuning campaigns and exceeding client expectations. My dedication had recently paid off with a substantial bonus after landing the Peterson account, a triumph I was excited to share with my family, only to have it brushed aside for Natalie's latest adventure story. My downtown apartment reflects my personality: organized, tasteful, and practical. Some might call it minimalist, but I prefer the term curated. Every item has its purpose and place, much like how I've tried to position myself in my family: useful, reliable, and always there when needed. Yet somehow, that position never seemed to earn me the recognition I craved. My parents, Harold and Diana Mason, aren't bad people. Dad built his accounting firm from nothing, working long hours that often meant missed soccer games and school plays. Mom managed the household with precision, ensuring we had home-cooked meals and clean clothes. They provided everything we needed materially, but emotionally? That's where things got complicated, especially when it came to how they treated Natalie versus me. Natalie, my 24-year-old sister, has always been the family firecracker. Where I calculated, she leaped. Where I saved, she spent. Where I planned, she improvised. Her spontaneous nature charmed everyone, especially our parents. When she dropped out of college to find herself in Europe for a year, they called it brave. When I graduated with honors and secured a job immediately, it was simply expected. Allison always lands on her feet, Dad would say, as if my success was somehow less impressive because it didn't come after spectacular failure. The annual family retreat began 15 years ago when Dad's business finally stabilized. What started as a weekend at a modest lake cabin evolved into a week-long stay at increasingly luxurious properties. Harbor Cove Resort, with its private beach access and stunning views, had been our destination for the past 3 years. These retreats included not just our immediate family but also extended relatives: Aunt Karen, Mom's sister, and her kids, my cousins Laura and Jason. Despite the obvious favoritism, I looked forward to these retreats. They represented a rare opportunity to feel like part of the family tapestry, to share meals and memories, to remind myself that despite everything, we were connected. Some of my fondest memories were made during late-night board games on the retreat house patio, or early morning walks with Uncle Frank, Dad's brother, who seemed to be the only one who truly saw me. Last year's retreat had been especially meaningful. I'd just been promoted, and Uncle Frank had toasted me at dinner. For a brief moment, I felt seen. Mom had actually hugged me and said she was proud. Even Natalie had seemed genuinely happy for me. That moment of family harmony made this year's exclusion all the more painful. The call from Mom came on a Tuesday evening as I was preparing dinner. "Honey, about the retreat next month," she began, her voice carrying that artificial sweetness that always preceded bad news. "We're having a bit of an issue with the sleeping arrangements." I balanced my phone between ear and shoulder while stirring pasta sauce. "What's wrong? Did they double book?" "No, nothing like that. It's just that, well, we won't have enough space for everyone this year." The wooden spoon stilled in my hand. "What do you mean? It's the same house as last year, right? 7 bedrooms?" "Yes, but..." She paused. "Your father's invited his golf buddy Richard and his wife. And Uncle Frank's bringing his new girlfriend. We just won't have enough room for everyone to have their own space." It didn't make sense. Last year, cousins Laura and Jason had shared a room. Natalie and I had shared many times before. Something felt off. I can share with Natalie, I offered, already sensing the rejection coming. Oh, sweetheart, you know how Natalie values her privacy. And she's been so stressed with her new job. She really needs her own space to decompress. The job Natalie had held for all of 3 months, while I'd been building my career for 7 years. I could sleep on the pull-out couch, I suggested, hating the pleading tone creeping into my voice. Harold's back has been acting up, and we might need that space for him if the mattresses are too soft, Mom countered. Each excuse more transparent than the last. After a few more minutes of flimsy justifications, I relented. Fine. I understand. You're such a good sport, Allison. That's why we can always count on you to be reasonable, Mom said, the relief in her voice palpable. We'll do something special when we get back, just the two of us. A promise I'd heard before, rarely fulfilled. I hung up and stared at my sauce, now burning at the edges of the pan. The acrid smell matched the bitterness rising in my throat. Once again, I was the expendable one. The reasonable one. The one who would understand. But this time, something felt different. A line had been crossed, and standing in my kitchen, watching dinner burn, I felt a resolve hardening within me. I wasn't going to just accept this. Not anymore. 2 weeks later, I arrived at my parents' suburban home for our bi-weekly family dinner, a tradition Mom insisted upon to keep the family connected. The familiar scent of Mom's lasagna greeted me as I entered, along with the sound of Natalie's laughter from the kitchen. I placed the bottle of wine I'd brought on the entry table and followed the noise. And then he surprised me with tickets to the concert. Can you believe it? Natalie was saying as I walked in, her hands animated as she recounted what was clearly a story about her new boyfriend. That sounds wonderful, dear, Mom beamed, sliding the lasagna into the oven. She looked up and noticed me. Oh, Allison, you're here. Could you set the table? No hello, no how are you, just straight to tasks. I swallowed my irritation and reached for the plates in the cabinet. Who surprised you with tickets? I asked Natalie, trying to engage. Tyler. The guy I've been seeing, she gushed. He's amazing, Al, smart, funny, has his own startup. You'll have to meet him soon. Sounds great, I said, arranging silverware. Maybe we can do a double date sometime. Or you could meet him at the retreat. Natalie exclaimed, then immediately looked at Mom, who shot her a warning glance. The room went still. I froze with a fork in my hand. What retreat? I asked, though I knew exactly which retreat she meant. Oh, Natalie looked to Mom for help, but Mom had suddenly become very interested in adjusting the oven temperature. Natalie, could you call your father? Tell him dinner's almost ready, Mom said, clearly trying to change the subject. Wait, I insisted, putting down the silverware with a clatter. Is Tyler coming to the family retreat? The silence that followed was answer enough. My mother busied herself with the salad, avoiding my eyes. Mom? I pressed. Well, Natalie and Tyler are getting quite serious, she finally said. Your father and I thought it would be nice for him to meet the extended family. The pieces clicked into place. There wasn't enough room because they were bringing Natalie's boyfriend of, 2 months? Instead of me. So there's space for a guy Natalie just started dating, but not for your daughter? The hurt in my voice was unmistakable. Allison, don't be dramatic. We just thought, well, Tyler might be the one for Natalie. You know how important first impressions are with the family. And what about me? I'm not family? Of course you are, honey. But you understand, don't you? This could be Natalie's future husband. They've been dating for 8 weeks, Mom. Dad walked in then, oblivious to the tension. Something smells great. Oh, hi Allison. Dinner was excruciating. I picked at my food while Natalie dominated the conversation with stories about Tyler, occasionally mentioning activities they were planning for the retreat. My parents enthusiastically participated, either ignoring or oblivious to my silence. "Tyler's really into fishing, so Dad, you'll have someone to go out on the boat with you this year," Natalie said. "That'll be great," Dad replied. "Frank never has the patience for it, and Jason gets seasick." "And I reserved us spots for that sunset yoga class on the beach," Natalie continued, turning to Mom. "The one you said you wanted to try last year but couldn't because..." She trailed off, perhaps finally realizing how this sounded to me. Last year, Mom had skipped the yoga class to help me prepare a surprise anniversary dessert for my parents. I placed my napkin beside my half-eaten lasagna and stood. "I should go. Early meeting tomorrow." "But you haven't had dessert," Mom protested. "I made your favorite cheesecake." "I'm not hungry." I grabbed my purse from the back of the chair. "Thanks for dinner." "Allison, don't be like this," Dad said, his tone carrying that familiar note of disapproval that always made me feel 10 years old again. "Like what, Dad? Hurt that my family decided I'm less important than Natalie's flavor of the month? Should I be understanding about that too? Reasonable old Allison, always making space for everyone else until there's no space left for her?" The words hung in the air as my family stared at me in shock. I never spoke this way. I never made scenes. I was the good one, the easy one. "We didn't mean it like that," Mom said weakly. "How did you mean it then?" When no answer came, I nodded. "That's what I thought. Enjoy your retreat." I drove home in tears, the weight of years of similar slights crushing down on me. The time Natalie got a car for her birthday while I got a department store gift card. The school events where my parents showed up late or left early, but never missed a minute of Natalie's performances. The constant praise for her mediocre accomplishments while my achievements were acknowledged with distracted nods. My phone rang as I pulled into my apartment complex. "Rachel, my best friend since college." "How was dinner with the family?" she asked. I burst into tears and told her everything. "Those absolute jerks," Rachel fumed when I finished. "Al, you need to stop letting them treat you this way. You've been putting up with this garbage forever." "What am I supposed to do? Cut off my family?" "No, but you could stand up for yourself for once. Show them you won't be sidelined anymore." "How exactly?" Rachel was quiet for a moment. "I don't know yet, but we'll figure it out. You deserve better than this, and it's time they realized it." After we hung up, I sat in my parked car, thinking about Rachel's words. The sadness was beginning to crystallize into something harder, sharper. Determination, maybe. Or resolve. As I walked to my apartment, an idea began to form. What if, instead of accepting my family's decision, I created my own alternative? What if, for once, I didn't just step aside? I unlocked my door, kicked off my shoes, and opened my laptop. A quick search brought up the Harbor Cove Resort website. And that's when I saw it, the oceanfront estate, a property even more spectacular than my family's rental, located just down the beach. Available the exact same week. A smile slowly spread across my face as I scrolled through the photos. This wasn't just an idea anymore. This was a plan. The oceanfront estate was, in a word, magnificent. 6 bedrooms, each with its own bathroom, a gourmet kitchen, infinity pool overlooking the ocean, private beach access, and a separate guest house. The price tag was steep, very steep, but as I stared at my bank account balance, bolstered by my recent bonus, I realized it was within reach. Barely, but possible. Did I really want to spend my hard-earned money on a petty revenge scheme? The responsible part of me balked at the idea. But another part, a part that had been silenced for too long, whispered that this wasn't just about revenge. This was about finally standing up for myself, about refusing to be erased. I closed the laptop without making a reservation. I needed time to think, to be sure this wasn't just an emotional reaction. The next morning at work, I couldn't focus. The oceanfront estate kept appearing in my mind, a symbol of defiance and self-respect. My phone buzzed with a text from Natalie, "Sorry about last night. You know how mom and dad get. Don't be mad?" No acknowledgement of the hurt they'd caused, no real apology. Just the expectation that I would, once again, let it go. Something hardened in me. I reopened the resort website and clicked reserve. The confirmation email arrived minutes later. I had just committed to spending an enormous amount of money on a house that could sleep 12 people. Now I needed to find people to fill it. I started making lists. Who in my life had also experienced the sting of family exclusion? Who would understand what I was trying to prove? The first name was easy, Uncle Frank. Despite being Dad's older brother, he was often sidelined at family events because of his outspoken nature and tendency to call out Dad's more pompous moments. Cousin Emily was next. Aunt Karen's middle child, she'd been excluded from last year's retreat because she'd brought up politics at Thanksgiving and gotten into an argument with Dad. The official excuse was that she had to work, but I knew the truth. Then there was Michael, my childhood friend who had grown up down the street from us. His parents had divorced messily when we were teenagers, and my parents had subtly pulled away from the friendship, not wanting me to be influenced by a broken home. We'd reconnected on social media recently, and he now lived near Harbor Cove. I needed more people, though. This wouldn't work if it was just a sad gathering of family rejects. I added Stephanie from work, who had become a close friend and confidant. She was fun, outgoing, and great at making people feel comfortable, exactly the energy I needed. Next, I started planning activities that would outshine whatever my family was doing. The resort offered private yacht tours. I booked one for our third day, timing it so we would pass by the beach in front of my family's rental during their usual mid-morning swim time. I arranged for a renowned local chef to prepare dinner for us one night. I reserved spots for a wine tasting at an exclusive vineyard nearby. I created a detailed spreadsheet of meals, activities, and sleeping arrangements. The organizational skills that made me successful at work were now being channeled into creating the perfect alternate retreat. A week into my planning, I got a call from Uncle Frank. "Allison, my favorite niece," he greeted me warmly. "How are you, kiddo?" "I'm good, Uncle Frank. How about you? Ready for the retreat?" He scoffed. "About that. Your father called. Apparently, I'm now bunking with Jason because they need my room for Natalie's new arm candy." This was perfect. "That sounds uncomfortable. Jason snores like a freight train. Tell me about it. I love your cousin, but sharing a room with him for a week might drive me to drink more than usual." I took a deep breath. "What if you didn't have to?" "What do you mean?" "What if I told you I've rented my own place at Harbor Cove? A place where you could have your own bedroom with a king-sized bed and a view of the ocean?" There was a pause on the line. "Allie, what exactly are you up to?" I explained my plan. Frank's laugh rumbled through the phone. "Count me in, kiddo. It's about time someone shook things up in this family." One ally secured. Uncle Frank promised to casually reach out to Cousin Emily, testing the waters without revealing too much. Next, I called Michael. After catching up, I explained my situation. "Let me get this straight," he said. "You're creating a rival family retreat to show up your parents for excluding you? That's either the pettiest or the most brilliant thing I've ever heard." "Maybe a bit of both," I admitted. "But it's more than that. It's about finally making a statement that I won't just disappear when it's convenient for them." "I'm in," Michael said without hesitation. "And I know some great local spots we can hit while you're here." With each person who agreed to join, my plan gained momentum. Emily was enthusiastically on board. Stephanie requested vacation days the moment I told her. Uncle Frank reported that his new girlfriend Margot was delighted to be included. I created a group chat called the A-Team Retreat and started sharing details, building excitement. The responses were enthusiastic, with everyone contributing ideas for activities and meals. Everything was falling into place, but there was still a gnawing anxiety in my stomach. Was I really going through with this? Was it worth potentially damaging my family relationships forever? Then Natalie called, bubbling with excitement about Tyler's fishing plans with Dad. He's never been deep-sea fishing before, but Dad says he'll teach him everything. They're going to have such a great time. The activity I had tried to get Dad interested in for years, but he'd always been too busy. That sounds great, I said, the words tasting like ash. I'm sure they'll bond wonderfully. I wish you could be there, Natalie said, the afterthought so transparent it was almost laughable. Maybe next year? Actually, I said, my resolve solidifying, I'll be closer than you think. What does that mean? Natalie asked, but I just told her she'd find out soon enough. After hanging up, I logged into the Harbor Cove website and upgraded our yacht tour to include premium champagne and a gourmet lunch. I added a private fireworks display for our last night. If I was doing this, I was going all in. I checked my bank account again and winced at the dwindling balance. This was financially irresponsible. But as I fingered the pearl necklace I always wore, a graduation gift from Uncle Frank, the only family member who had made a big deal of my academic achievements, I decided some things were worth the cost. The weekend before we were set to leave, I got a worrying text from Emily. She'd come down with a bad case of bronchitis and her doctor advised against travel. Our numbers were dwindling. In a moment of inspiration, I reached out to Jason, who had always been caught in the middle of family dramas. No pressure, I assured him. I know you're going to the regular retreat. I just wanted you to know you're welcome to stop by if you want. To my surprise, he asked for more details. After I explained, he whistled low. Aunt Diana and Uncle Harold are going to flip when they find out. Probably, I agreed. But I'm done being the one who always gets sidelined. Good for you, Al, seriously. And, can Laura and I split our time? That house sounds amazing, and to be honest, the thought of a whole week with Mom monitoring my every move isn't super appealing. Another small victory. Even if they weren't fully committing to my side, the fact that my cousins were considering dividing their time was validating. As departure day approached, I had moments of panic. What if no one showed up? What if my family just ignored my statement? What if this whole thing backfired spectacularly? But then I would look at the group chat, buzzing with excited messages about the upcoming week, and I would calm down. This wasn't just about sending a message to my family anymore. It was about creating my own space where I was valued and central, not an afterthought. The day before departure, I received a delivery. It was a custom welcome basket for each guest, filled with local treats, a personalized beach towel, and a small gift chosen specifically for them. As I arranged them in the trunk of my car, I realized I was actually looking forward to this week, more than I had looked forward to a family retreat in years. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not from anxiety, but from anticipation. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just going along with someone else's plans. I was creating my own narrative, and it felt exhilarating. A week before the retreat, we gathered for the traditional pre-trip family dinner. Mom had prepared her usual feast, pot roast, mashed potatoes, green beans, and rolls, comfort food that usually preceded any family event. I arrived exactly on time, neither early enough to be cornered for pre-dinner kitchen duty nor late enough to draw disapproval. Natalie was already there, showing Mom photos on her phone. The Porters got engaged there last year, she was saying. Tyler and I could walk down to that same spot on the beach. Mom was nodding enthusiastically. It would make a beautiful backdrop for proposals. I cleared my throat to announce my presence, and they both looked up, Mom with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, Natalie with barely concealed excitement. Allison, you're just in time. Your father's opening wine in the den, Mom said. I'll go say hi, I replied, dropping my purse on a kitchen chair and heading to find Dad. He was indeed uncorking a bottle of Merlot, Uncle Frank lounging in an armchair nearby. There she is, Uncle Frank said with a wink that Dad couldn't see. We'd agreed to keep our plans secret until the right moment. Allison, Dad nodded. Want a glass? Please. I accepted the wine and sat across from Uncle Frank. How are the preparations for the retreat coming along? Dad poured himself a glass. Good, good. Got the boat reserved for Tuesday. Weather's supposed to be perfect. Frank, you'll have to share with Jason again this year, Dad continued. We need your room for Tyler. Uncle Frank raised an eyebrow. Interesting priority system you've got there, Harold. The guy Natalie met 5 minutes ago gets preferential treatment over your daughter and your brother. Dad frowned. Don't start, Frank. We've been through this. The sleeping arrangements are tight this year. Seems like they always get tight when it comes to Allison, Frank remarked casually. Dad shot him an irritated look but was saved from responding when Mom called us to dinner. Throughout the meal, the conversation revolved almost exclusively around retreat plans. Natalie dominated, detailing her and Tyler's anticipated activities. Mom and Dad enthusiastically contributed, discussing restaurants they wanted to try and sights to see. I remained quiet, eating steadily and observing. Uncle Frank caught my eye occasionally, a mischievous glint in his expression. Once, he deliberately steered the conversation toward sleeping arrangements. So, Harold, where exactly is everyone sleeping in this grand mansion of yours? Dad detailed the room assignments, stumbling slightly when he got to where I would have been. And Cousin Laura confirmed she's coming? Uncle Frank pressed. Because I heard she might have other plans. Mom looked confused. Other plans? She confirmed last month. What other plans? Frank shrugged innocently. Just something I heard. Might be nothing. I hid my smile behind my wine glass. Laura had indeed expressed interest in spending at least part of the week at my rental. As dessert was being served, Mom finally addressed me directly. Allison, you've been quiet. Are you still upset about the retreat? We really wish there was space. The perfect opening. I took a sip of water, setting down my glass carefully. Actually, I'll be fine. I've made other arrangements for that week. Other arrangements? Dad frowned. What does that mean? I'm taking some vacation days. Thought I might head to the coast. The coast? Natalie asked. Like, where we'll be? I nodded casually. Exactly where you'll be, actually. Harbor Cove is lovely this time of year. Confusion spread across their faces as they processed this. You're coming to Harbor Cove? To do what? Mom asked. I reached for my phone, pulling up photos of the oceanfront estate. I've rented a place. Just down the beach from your rental, actually. I slid my phone across the table. Beautiful, isn't it? Mom's eyes widened as she scrolled through the photos. This is bigger than our rental. And right on the water. Who's going with you? Dad demanded, taking the phone from Mom. Just some people who appreciate my company. Uncle Frank, for one. I nodded toward Frank, who raised his wine glass in confirmation. Frank? Dad turned to his brother, betrayal evident. You're skipping the family retreat for, whatever this is? Not skipping anything, Harold. Just choosing a retreat where I get my own room and don't have to listen to Jason snore all night, Frank replied smoothly. Who else? Mom asked, her voice tight. Cousin Emily. My friend Stephanie from work. Michael Porter, you remember him from down the street? A few others. Michael Porter? The kid from the broken home? Mom's disdain was palpable. The successful architect who happens to live near Harbor Cove now, I corrected. He's going to show us some local spots. This is ridiculous, Dad declared. You're creating a competing family retreat out of spite. No, Dad. I'm creating my own space since there apparently wasn't room for me in yours. So this is some kind of statement? A way to make us feel guilty? Mom's voice rose with indignation. This is me refusing to be erased, I said calmly. This is me deciding that if there's no space for me at the family table, I'll build my own table. You're being childish, Dad said dismissively. And wasteful. That place must cost a fortune. Financially irresponsible, Mom agreed. Is this really how you want to spend your money? On a petty gesture? I think it's brilliant, Natalie said suddenly. Everyone turned to stare at her. What? It is. You guys excluded Allison to make room for my boyfriend, and she found a badass way to respond. I'd have done the same thing. Natalie, language, Mom admonished automatically. Actually, our place looks kind of lame compared to Allison's, Natalie continued, looking at the photos again. Does that one have an infinity pool? Ours doesn't have an infinity pool. Yes, it does, I confirmed. And a private chef for one night. And a yacht tour. A yacht tour? Natalie's eyes widened. Tyler would love that. He's obsessed with boats. Natalie. Mom snapped. You're not helping. The table fell into uncomfortable silence. Dad was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. Mom looked torn between anger and hurt. Natalie seemed secretly impressed. Uncle Frank was failing to hide his amusement. Well, I said, standing up. This has been illuminating. But I should go. I have a lot of preparations to make for my retreat. Allison, sit down, Dad commanded. We're not done discussing this. Actually, we are, I replied, gathering my purse. My plans are set. My guests are confirmed. The house is paid for. Nothing to discuss. You can't just create a rival family event. Mom protested. Watch me, I said, heading for the door. I paused, turning back. Oh, and if anyone wants to visit, you're all welcome. There's plenty of space. I left with my head high, the stunned silence behind me more satisfying than any shouting match could have been. In the car, I let out a shaky breath. It had actually happened. I'd stood my ground, revealed my plan, and walked away intact. My phone buzzed with a text from Uncle Frank, proud of you, kiddo. Harold's face was priceless. See you at the real retreat. A moment later, another text came through, this one from Natalie, that was badass, sis. Dad's still sputtering. Can I really come see your place? I smiled as I typed my reply, anytime. There's always room for you. For the first time in ages, I felt powerful. In control. I had no idea how the actual retreat would unfold, but revealing my plan had already shifted something fundamental in my family dynamic. And it felt incredible. The week before departure was a whirlwind of preparations. I'd taken Wednesday through Friday off work, allowing me time to shop, pack, and ensure every detail was perfect. The oceanfront estate came with basic supplies, but I wanted to add personal touches that would make it feel welcoming and special for everyone. My apartment looked like a staging area for a small event planning business. The dining table was covered with color-coded lists, the living room filled with bags and boxes of supplies, and the kitchen counters stacked with non-perishable welcome basket items. I'd researched local restaurants and attractions, creating custom itineraries that accommodated everyone's interests. For Uncle Frank and his girlfriend Margot, I'd found a jazz club nearby that had excellent reviews. For Michael and Stephanie, who were both fitness enthusiasts, I'd located a highly rated hiking trail with ocean views. For cousin Emily, a photography buff, I'd marked scenic spots perfect for capturing sunrise and sunset. The personal chef had been the most extravagant expense, but after reviewing his proposed menu for our Saturday night dinner, I knew it would be worth every penny. 6 courses of local seafood and produce, paired with regional wines, served on the oceanfront patio. It would be an experience none of us would forget. I was finishing a work presentation on Monday when my phone rang. Mom's name flashed on the screen, and I hesitated before answering. Hello? Allison, she began, her voice carrying that mix of authority and manipulation she'd perfected over the years. I've been thinking about what you said at dinner last night. And? I continued typing, refusing to drop everything for this conversation. Don't you think you're overreacting? It's just 1 year. We can make sure you have space next time. I saved my document before responding. Mom, this isn't about just this year. This is about a pattern. I'm always the one expected to step aside, to understand, to make accommodations. That's not true, she protested weakly. It is, and you know it. But it doesn't matter now. I've made other plans, and I'm looking forward to them. Your father is very upset, she tried next. Dad will survive hearing no for once in his life. He thinks you're being deliberately hurtful. I laughed at the irony. And excluding me from a family event wasn't hurtful? That was different. We didn't have a choice. You had plenty of choices, Mom. You could have asked Natalie and Tyler to share. You could have had Tyler stay somewhere else and just join for activities. You could have asked if I'd mind sleeping on the pullout. But the choice you made was to tell me there wasn't room. So I made my own room. There was silence on the line. We're leaving Sunday morning, she said finally. What time are you going? Saturday. We want to get settled before the chef arrives. You really hired a chef? The disbelief in her voice was almost comical. Yes, Mom. A very good one. After another uncomfortable pause, she sighed. Well, I hope you know what you're doing. This could change things in the family. Things needed to change, I replied simply. After we hung up, I returned to my preparation lists, but my concentration was broken. Despite my confident words to my mother, doubt crept in. Was I taking this too far? Was 1 week of making a point worth potentially permanent family friction? My phone buzzed again, this time with a text from Natalie. Mom's been sighing dramatically for an hour. What did you say to her? I smiled despite myself and texted back, just that I'm sticking to my plans. Her response came quickly, good. Don't let them guilt you out of it. By the way, Tyler is indeed a massive fishing enthusiast, so if you see us on the water, wave sarcastically. My relationship with Natalie had always been complicated. She was the golden child, yes, but she'd never asked for that role. In her own way, she was trapped in the family dynamic too. Wednesday morning brought another complication. The weather forecast for Harbor Cove had changed, predicting a significant storm system moving through on Sunday night into Monday. I quickly contacted the yacht tour company, who assured me they'd monitor conditions and reschedule if necessary. The chef confirmed he could adjust our outdoor dinner plans to indoors if needed. As I was resolving these issues, Emily called with bad news. Her bronchitis had worsened, and her doctor had put her on strict orders not to travel. I'm so sorry, Allison, she said between coughs. I was really looking forward to it. Don't worry about it, I assured her. Just focus on getting better. But inwardly, I was concerned. Our numbers were dwindling again. What if this turned into a sad gathering of just 3 or 4 people? Would that make my point, or just make me look pathetic? I called Jason to confirm whether he and Laura still planned to visit. About that, he hedged. Aunt Diana called Mom last night. There was a whole thing. Mom's now insisting we stay at the official retreat the whole time. My heart sank. I see. But, Jason continued, Laura and I are adults. We'll figure something out. Your place sounds way cooler. It wasn't a firm commitment, but it was something. I thanked him and hung up, trying not to spiral into anxiety. The next potential crisis came Thursday evening. Uncle Frank called, sounding concerned. Allie, did you know about Tyler? What about him? I was in the middle of packing beach supplies. Your father just called to casually mention that he heard Tyler has a bit of a reputation. Apparently, he's been through 3 serious relationships this year alone. Harold thought I should warn you before you potentially embarrass yourself with this whole rival retreat thing. I gripped the phone tighter. So Dad's trying to scare you off from joining me. Trying and failing, Frank confirmed. But I thought you should know they're pulling out all the stops. Thanks for the heads up. And for sticking with me. Wouldn't miss it, kiddo. Harold needs someone to challenge his authority now and then. Keeps him from getting too self-important. After we hung up, I sat among my half-packed supplies, suddenly exhausted by it all. Maybe this was a mistake. Maybe I should just call everyone, cancel the house, eat the deposit, and be done with it. It would certainly be easier than continuing this uphill battle against my family's established hierarchy. But then I remembered the look on my father's face when I'd revealed my plans. Not just anger, there had been surprise there too. Surprise that reliable, accommodating Allison had actually stood up for herself. That expression alone was worth the price of the house. My phone buzzed with a notification from the group chat. Stephanie had posted a photo of her packed suitcase with the caption, "Ready for the best revenge retreat ever. T-48 hours." Michael had responded with a picture of local beer he'd bought for the house, and Margot had shared a playlist she'd created for beach days. They were excited. They were committed. And suddenly, I remembered this wasn't just about sending a message to my family anymore. It was about creating something positive for people who wanted to be included. It was about reclaiming my own worth. I returned to packing with renewed energy. The storm would be dealt with if it came. The numbers would be what they would be. But I was going through with this. Friday night, I did a final check of my preparations. The refrigerated items were packed in coolers. The welcome baskets were arranged by room assignment. My detailed itinerary was printed and tucked into a binder, along with local maps, restaurant recommendations, and emergency contacts. Stephanie would be arriving at my apartment at 7 a.m., and we would drive to Harbor Cove together. Uncle Frank and Margot would meet us there. Michael, being local, would come by once we were settled. As I set my alarm, I received one last text. From Dad, "This isn't like you, Allison. There's still time to reconsider." I stared at the message for a long moment before typing my response. "Actually, Dad, this is exactly like me. You just haven't been paying attention." Then I turned off my phone and went to sleep, ready for whatever tomorrow would bring. Saturday morning dawned clear and bright, as if the universe was endorsing my plans. Stephanie arrived promptly at 7, coffee in hand and excitement written across her face. "Road trip time," she announced, helping me load the last of the supplies into my car. "I still can't believe you're doing this. It's so unlike the Allison I know from work." "Maybe it's exactly like me, and work just doesn't bring it out," I replied, thinking of my text to Dad. The drive to Harbor Cove took just over 3 hours, filled with easy conversation and anticipation. Stephanie had only heard the sanitized version of my family dynamics before, but as the miles passed, I found myself sharing more details, the kind I usually kept hidden. "So your sister's boyfriend gets priority over you? That's wild," Stephanie shook her head. "And your parents don't see anything wrong with that?" "They see what they want to see," I said. "And they've always seen Natalie more clearly than me." As we approached Harbor Cove, the coastal scenery became increasingly spectacular. Rocky cliffs gave way to pristine beaches, the ocean a stunning blue under the summer sky. We rolled down the windows, letting in the salt-tinged air. "I can see why your family comes here every year," Stephanie remarked as we drove through the picturesque town center. "It's gorgeous." The GPS directed us down a private road lined with elegant homes, each more impressive than the last. At the end of the road stood the oceanfront estate, even more spectacular in person than in the photos. Modern architecture in glass and stone, perched on a cliff overlooking the ocean. "Holy crap," Stephanie breathed as we pulled into the circular driveway. "You didn't say it was a literal mansion." The property manager was waiting for us, a friendly woman named Brenda who gave us a thorough tour of the house. Each room was more beautiful than the last, with high ceilings, luxurious furnishings, and breathtaking views. The main living area opened onto a massive deck with the infinity pool that seemed to merge with the ocean beyond. "The chef will arrive at 4 tomorrow to begin preparations," Brenda explained as we examined the gourmet kitchen. The yacht tour is confirmed for Tuesday at 10. And here are the extra keys for your other guests. After she left, Stephanie and I stood in the grand entryway, momentarily overwhelmed. I can't believe we have this place to ourselves, Stephanie said. Not for long, I replied. Uncle Frank and Margot should be here in about an hour. Let's get the welcome baskets set up in the rooms. We spent the next hour arranging the personal touches I'd brought, placing welcome baskets in each bedroom, setting up a drink station on the deck, laying out beach towels by the pool. I had just finished arranging a flower centerpiece on the dining table when my phone buzzed with a text from Uncle Frank. Almost there. Need anything from town? Just yourselves, I replied, feeling a flutter of excitement. This was really happening. When the doorbell rang, I smoothed my sundress and took a deep breath before opening it. Uncle Frank stood there with Margot, a stylish woman in her 50s with a warm smile. Welcome to the Better Retreat, I said, stepping aside to let them in. Uncle Frank whistled as he took in the soaring ceilings and ocean view. Harold is going to have an aneurysm when he sees this place. Frank, Margot chided gently, offering me her hand. I'm so glad to finally meet you, Allison. Frank talks about you all the time. After showing them to their room, the master suite with a private balcony, we gathered on the main deck for a welcome toast. The champagne had barely been poured when Michael arrived, carrying a cooler of local craft beers and a bouquet of fresh flowers. The prodigal neighbor returns, he said, hugging me. This place is insane, Al. Well done. With everyone settled, I proposed a toast. To creating our own space and filling it with people who value us. Here, Uncle Frank said, raising his glass. As the afternoon stretched into early evening, we fell into easy conversation. Michael suggested a local seafood restaurant for dinner, and we decided to walk into town, enjoying the perfect weather and spectacular sunset. We were halfway through our meal when Michael nudged me, nodding toward the entrance. Isn't that your family? I turned to see my parents, Natalie, and a tall, handsome man I assumed was Tyler entering the restaurant. They were a day early. What are they doing here? I hissed to Uncle Frank. They weren't supposed to arrive until tomorrow. Harold mentioned they might come early to get settled, Frank replied. Though I suspect he wanted to see what you were up to before the rest of the family arrives. Before I could respond, Natalie spotted us and waved enthusiastically, dragging her group toward our table. Allison! What a coincidence! She exclaimed, though her eyes held a knowing glint. We decided to come up early. The weather was too nice to waste in the city. Introductions were made all around, slightly awkward but civil. Tyler was indeed handsome, with perfect teeth and carefully styled hair. He had the smooth charm of a salesman, immediately complimenting the restaurant choice and asking Michael about local attractions. Would you like to join us? Stephanie offered, ever the diplomat. My parents exchanged glances. We wouldn't want to intrude, Mom said, her eyes taking in our table, lingering on the wine and laughter evidence. You're not intruding, I said, surprising myself with the sincerity in my voice. There's plenty of room. Another table was pulled over, and suddenly our intimate dinner became a larger affair. The conversation remained slightly strained, with Dad asking pointed questions about the cost of our rental and Mom making subtle comments about excessive spending. Tyler dominated much of the conversation, telling stories about his startup that seemed to grow more elaborate with each telling. I caught Natalie watching him with a mixture of admiration and something else, doubt, perhaps? As dessert was served, Mom turned to me. So, Allison, will you show us this famous house of yours tomorrow? The question held a challenge. She wanted to inspect, to judge, to find flaws in my plan. Of course, I replied smoothly. We're having a chef prepare dinner tomorrow night. You're welcome to join us for that too. A chef? Dad raised his eyebrows. For 5 people? The more the merrier, I countered. It's a set menu, so additional guests don't change the cost. As we walked back after dinner, Natalie fell into step beside me, letting the others walk ahead. I can't believe you actually did this, she said quietly. Rented a house, invited people, the whole 9 yards. Believe it, I replied. I'm done being the one who always steps aside. She was quiet for a moment. I didn't ask them to exclude you, you know. For what it's worth. I know you didn't. But you didn't object either. Fair point. She kicked at a stone on the path. Tyler and I had a fight earlier, by the way. He wants to spend the whole week fishing with Dad, but I had planned some couple activities. And Dad's opinion matters more than yours? I asked, recognizing the pattern. She looked at me sharply. Huh. I hadn't thought of it that way. We walked in silence for a while before she spoke again. Can I see your place tonight? Just a quick tour? I hesitated. Won't Mom and Dad expect you back at your rental? Probably. But I'm a grown woman, and I'm curious. Plus, it'll drive them crazy wondering what we're talking about. I couldn't help but laugh. In that case, absolutely. Back at the oceanfront estate, Natalie's jaw dropped as she took in the expansive living areas, the infinity pool, the gourmet kitchen. This is ridiculous, Al. Our place looks like a motel in comparison. Exaggerating a bit, aren't you? I led her out to the deck, where the sound of waves crashing against the cliffs below filled the night. Only slightly. She leaned against the railing. Why didn't you ever do something like this before? Stand up to them? I considered the question. I guess I was comfortable in my role. The reliable one. The one who never caused problems. And now? Now I'm tired of being reliable if it means being forgotten. I turned to face her. I'm not doing this to hurt anyone, Nat. I'm doing it because for once, I need to put myself first. She nodded slowly. I get it. More than you might think. Her phone buzzed, and she grimaced at the screen. Mom. Wondering where I am. I should go. At the door, she paused. Can Tyler and I really come to your chef dinner tomorrow? Absolutely. There's always room. After she left, I rejoined the others on the deck. The night was perfect, warm with a gentle breeze, stars spreading across the sky, the sound of the ocean a constant, soothing backdrop. Your sister seems nice, Stephanie commented. Not the monster I was expecting from your stories. She's not a monster, I admitted. She's just been cast as the favorite for so long she doesn't know how to be anything else. And how are you feeling? Uncle Frank asked, handing me a glass of wine. Now that the first family encounter is behind you? I considered the question, searching for signs of the anxiety or resentment I expected to feel. Instead, I found a surprising calm. I feel good. In control. Like whatever happens this week, I've already made my point. That's my girl, Frank said proudly, raising his glass to me. Later, as I lay in bed listening to the waves, I realized something had shifted during dinner. Seeing my parents and Natalie as guests at my event rather than authority figures had changed the dynamic. For the first time, I felt like we were meeting as equals. And that, more than any luxury accommodation or exclusive activity, was what I had been seeking all along. Sunday morning brought perfect weather, clear skies, gentle breeze, and temperatures warm enough for swimming. I woke early, making coffee and taking it out to the deck to watch the sunrise. The tranquility was exactly what I needed to center myself for the day ahead. One by one, the others joined me. Stephanie brought out a yoga mat and did sun salutations facing the ocean. Michael arrived with fresh pastries from town. Uncle Frank and Margot emerged hand in hand, looking relaxed and happy. What's the plan for today, fearless leader? Uncle Frank asked, pouring himself coffee. Beach day, I replied. I thought we'd keep it simple before the chef arrives this afternoon. Swimming, relaxing, maybe explore the tide pools at the north end of the beach. After breakfast, we gathered our beach supplies and made our way down the private staircase that led from our property to the shore. The beach was relatively empty, with just a few early morning walkers and surfers braving the waves. We claimed a perfect spot and set up our chairs and umbrellas. I had just settled in with my book when Stephanie nudged me. "Is that your family's rental?" she asked, pointing to a large house about a quarter-mile down the beach. I followed her gaze and nodded. The house my family had rented was beautiful, but from this vantage point, it was obvious that our place was significantly more impressive. "Do you think they can see us from there?" Stephanie continued. "Probably," I said. "And if not, they will soon. This is usually when they come down for morning swim time." Sure enough, about 20 minutes later, a group appeared in front of the other house. Even from a distance, I could make out my parents, Natalie, Tyler, and what appeared to be Aunt Karen and her husband setting up chairs. "Should we wave?" Michael suggested with a mischievous grin. "Let them come to us," Uncle Frank advised. "Maintain the upper hand." It didn't take long. Natalie and Tyler broke away from the group and began walking in our direction. As they approached, I stood to greet them. "Morning, sis," Natalie called. "Thought we'd check out this end of the beach." "Perfect timing," I replied. We were just about to open some drinks. "Want to join?" Tyler's eyes widened as he took in our setup, the premium chairs, cooler of craft beers and wine, gourmet snack basket. "This looks amazing," he said. I introduced them to everyone, and soon they were settled with drinks, Tyler engaging Michael in conversation about local surfing conditions, Natalie helping Stephanie apply sunscreen to her back. "Your parents didn't want to join?" Uncle Frank asked Natalie, his tone innocent but his eyes twinkling. "Mom's pretending not to notice where we went," Natalie replied with a laugh. "But she's definitely noticed." The morning passed pleasantly. Tyler, for all his self-importance, was knowledgeable about marine life and pointed out interesting creatures in the tide pools we explored. Natalie seemed more relaxed away from our parents, her laugh easier, her conversations less competitive. Around noon, my phone buzzed with a text from Jason, arrived at the main house. "Laura and I want to sneak over to see your place. When's good?" I replied with an invitation to join us on the beach now and come back to the house with us after. Within 30 minutes, Jason and Laura appeared, greeting everyone warmly. The group had grown again, and I couldn't help but feel a surge of satisfaction seeing how easily everyone was mingling. "This is way more fun than listening to Aunt Karen complain about the rental not having enough bathroom towels," Laura confided to me as we walked along the water's edge. "You're welcome anytime," I assured her. "Tonight's dinner should be amazing if you want to join." "Already planning on it," she grinned. "Mom's going to be pissed, but whatever. I'm 26, not 16. As the afternoon progressed, dark clouds began to gather on the horizon. The storm that had been forecast for Monday seemed to be arriving early. "We should head back," I suggested, checking the weather app on my phone. "The chef will be arriving soon anyway, and it looks like rain is moving in." We packed up our beach supplies and made our way back to the house, our group now numbering 9, me, Stephanie, Uncle Frank, Margot, Michael, Natalie, Tyler, Jason, and Laura. The house easily accommodated everyone, with plenty of space to spread out and freshen up before dinner. The chef, Antonio, arrived precisely at 4, bringing with him an assistant and cases of fresh ingredients. They took over the kitchen with professional efficiency, the delicious smells soon filling the house. As we gathered for pre-dinner drinks on the covered portion of the deck, the first raindrops began to fall, gentle at first but quickly increasing in intensity. "Perfect timing," Stephanie remarked, watching the rain create patterns on the infinity pool's surface. "Cozy inside with gourmet food while the storm rages outside." My phone rang. "Mom." I stepped inside to take the call. "Allison? Are Natalie and Tyler with you?" She sounded worried. "Yes, they're here. We're about to have dinner." "Oh, thank goodness." The storms picked up, and we were concerned. A pause. "It's really coming down now." "You're welcome to join us," I offered, surprising myself again with the sincerity of the invitation. The chef has prepared plenty. Another pause, longer this time. Let me talk to your father. She hung up, and I rejoined the others, explaining the situation. Think they'll come? Uncle Frank asked. I don't know, I admitted. Dad's pride is pretty strong. We had just been seated at the dining table, Antonio explaining the first course, a delicate sea scallop crudo with local citrus, when the doorbell rang. I opened it to find my parents, drenched despite their umbrellas, looking uncomfortable but determined. The rain is really bad, Dad said by way of greeting. Thought we'd take you up on that dinner offer. Come in, I stepped aside, noticing Mom's eyes widening as she took in the interior of the house. We're just getting started. Antonio smoothly added 2 place settings, and soon my parents were seated, being served the first exquisite course. The dinner was a triumph, 6 courses of perfectly prepared local cuisine, each more delicious than the last. The conversation flowed as easily as the wine, with even my father unbending enough to compliment the food enthusiastically. As dessert was being served, a caramelized white chocolate pavlova with seasonal berries, the power flickered once, twice, and then went out completely. There was a moment of surprised silence before Uncle Frank's laugh broke the tension. Well, that's atmospheric. Antonio and his assistant efficiently produced candles, and soon the dining room was bathed in a warm, golden glow that made the experience even more magical. The storm must have knocked out a transformer, Dad commented, pulling out his phone to check the power company's website. Says here it could be several hours before it's restored. We have a generator, I said. It should kick in automatically for the essential systems. As if on cue, some of the lights came back on, dimmer than before but sufficient. Antonio explained that the kitchen was still functional, and dessert would proceed as planned. Our place doesn't have a generator, Mom said, a note of something like envy in her voice. I wonder if their power is out too. Dad was texting someone, presumably Aunt Karen or the others back at their rental. His expression confirmed it. Power's out there too, no generator. Karen's asking if we have flashlights or candles to spare. An opportunity presented itself, and I took it. We have plenty. And space, if anyone wants to come over until the power's back. Dad looked at me for a long moment, something shifting in his expression. I'll let them know. By the time dessert was finished, the rest of the family had arrived, Aunt Karen and Uncle David, their youngest son Kevin, and Dad's golf buddy Richard and his wife Susan. They were wet and irritable, but grateful for the light and warmth of our house. Antonio and his assistant cleaned up efficiently and departed with many thanks, leaving behind a kitchen stocked with leftovers and a house full of family members who had never expected to end up here. As the evening progressed, I found myself in the kitchen with Mom, preparing coffee for everyone. This place is really something, Allison, she said, watching me locate cups in the unfamiliar cabinets. You've done a beautiful job with everything. Thank you, I replied, the simple acknowledgement warming me more than I expected. I didn't realize. She hesitated. I didn't realize how much it hurt you, being excluded this year. I measured coffee carefully before responding. It wasn't just this year, Mom. It was all the years of being an afterthought. Of Natalie's needs always coming first. Of being expected to understand and accommodate everyone else while no one did the same for me. She was quiet, watching the coffee brew. I never saw it that way. I know you didn't. That's part of the problem. The coffee finished, and I began pouring cups. Mom touched my arm gently. I'm seeing it now, she said softly. And I'm sorry. It wasn't a complete acknowledgement, but it was a start. I nodded, accepting both the apology and its limitations. We carried the coffee trays out to the living room, where everyone had congregated. The storm continued to rage outside, but inside was warm and bright. My family, all of them, filling the space I had created. Not exactly as I had planned, but somehow fitting nonetheless. Uncle Frank caught my eye from across the room and raised his coffee cup in a subtle toast. I returned the gesture, feeling a sense of completion that had nothing to do with revenge and everything to do with finally being seen. Monday morning broke with brilliant sunshine, the storm having cleared overnight, leaving the world washed clean and gleaming. The power had been restored around midnight, but Aunt Karen and the others had already settled into guest rooms at our house, making it easier to just stay. I woke early again and was surprised to find my mother already in the kitchen, making coffee. "Hope you don't mind," she said when she saw me. "Everyone's still asleep, and I thought I'd get a head start." "Not at all," I replied, getting a mug from the cabinet. "Did you sleep okay?" "Better than I expected." She handed me a filled coffee cup. "That guest room is lovely. The bed is more comfortable than ours at the other house." We took our coffee out to the deck, sitting side by side in the morning light. The ocean sparkled below us, the damage from the storm limited to a few branches down on the property and beach debris visible along the shoreline. "I'm still trying to wrap my head around all this," Mom said after a while. "When did my practical, reliable daughter become someone who rents a luxury house to make a point?" I smiled over my coffee. "I've always been capable of more than you've given me credit for." "Clearly." She looked out at the view. "Your father and I talked a lot last night, after everyone went to bed." "About you. About how we've treated you compared to Natalie." I waited, letting her find her words. "We didn't mean to make you feel less important, Allison. It just happened. Natalie always needed more attention, more help, more guidance. You were so self-sufficient, so capable. We relied on that. Being reliable shouldn't mean being overlooked," I said quietly. "No, it shouldn't." She reached over to touch my hand. "I'm sorry we didn't see that sooner." The simple apology, free of justifications or qualifications, caught me off guard. I had expected more resistance, more defense of their actions. "Thank you," I managed. "This week isn't going to be what any of us planned," Mom continued, gesturing to the house, "the circumstances. But maybe that's for the best." People began to stir inside the house, and soon the deck filled with family members and friends enjoying the morning sun. Breakfast became an impromptu buffet, with everyone contributing what they could find in the well-stocked kitchen. As we ate, Dad cleared his throat to get everyone's attention. "Karen and I checked on our rental this morning. Power's back on, everything's fine. But..." He glanced at Mom, who nodded encouragingly. "We were thinking, if Allison doesn't mind, maybe we could combine forces for the rest of the week. Pool our resources, do some activities together." All eyes turned to me. The ball was firmly in my court. "I think that could work," I said carefully. "We have plenty of space here." "And a better view," Natalie added with a grin. "And a better view," Dad acknowledged with a surprising chuckle. "We'd contribute to the costs, of course." "We can work that out," I replied, feeling a weight lifting that I hadn't even realized I was carrying. The morning transitioned into planning mode, with everyone contributing ideas for the combined retreat. The yacht tour was expanded to include more family members. The hiking excursion Michael had suggested became a group activity. Meal responsibilities were divided among the houses. Around midday, I found myself alone on the beach with Natalie, both of us having volunteered to check for storm damage along our stretch of shoreline. "So, big success for Operation Make a Point," she said, nudging me with her shoulder as we walked. "Not exactly how I planned it," I admitted. "But yes, I think so." "You know, watching you this weekend made me realize something," Natalie said, stopping to pick up a perfect sand dollar. "I've been playing into this golden child role my whole life, and it's exhausting." "What do you mean?" "I mean, I'm constantly performing. Being the fun one, the spontaneous one, the one with the exciting stories. Do you know how much pressure that is? To always be interesting enough to hold everyone's attention?" I had never considered it from this angle. "I guess we've both been trapped in our assigned family roles." "Exactly." She handed me the sand dollar. "And watching you break out of yours made me realize I can break out of mine too." Is that why you and Tyler were fighting? She sighed. Partly. He fits perfectly into the narrative, handsome, charismatic, ambitious. The kind of guy the golden child should be with. But honestly? He's exhausting too. Everything's a performance with him, a calculation for maximum impact. I noticed that at dinner, I said carefully. Of course you did. You notice everything. She kicked at the sand. I'm thinking of ending it with him. Because he doesn't fit the new narrative? Because I'm tired of narratives altogether. I just want to be me, whoever that is. She looked at me with unusual vulnerability. Does that make any sense? Perfect sense, I assured her. And for what it's worth, I like the real you much better than the performance. We continued our walk in comfortable silence, collecting interesting shells and sea glass, the competitive edge that had always defined our relationship notably absent. When we returned to the house, we found the deck full of activity. Someone had brought a portable speaker, and music filled the air. Uncle Frank was teaching Tyler and Jason how to make his famous grilled seafood skewers. Stephanie and Laura were deep in conversation about their similar experiences growing up with overbearing mothers, while Margot showed Mom photos from her recent trip to Portugal. The scene was exactly what I had hoped for when I first conceived this plan, a gathering of people enjoying each other's company in a beautiful setting. The only difference was that it now included my entire family, not just the selected few I had initially invited. As the afternoon progressed, Dad found me in the kitchen where I was preparing a salad to accompany Uncle Frank's skewers. Got a minute? He asked, his tone uncharacteristically hesitant. Sure. I wiped my hands on a towel and followed him to a quiet corner of the living room. He seemed to struggle for words, something I'd rarely seen. My father was always certain, always decisive. I owe you an apology, Allison, he finally said. A big one. I waited, sensing he had more to say. I've taken you for granted for years. Expected you to be the one who never needed attention or special consideration. The one who would understand when Natalie got the spotlight. He shook his head. It wasn't fair to you. No, it wasn't, I agreed softly. Your mother helped me see it, but I should have seen it on my own. He met my eyes directly. I'm proud of you, you know. Not just for your career success or for being responsible. I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself, even when it meant standing up to me. The words I had longed to hear for so long washed over me like a healing balm. Thank you, Dad. That means a lot. This place, he gestured around us, what you've created here, it's impressive. And it made me realize how much I've underestimated you. Better late than never, I said with a small smile. Better late than never, he agreed, reaching out to awkwardly pat my shoulder. It wasn't a hug, but from my father, it was significant. That evening, we had an impromptu beach bonfire, with everyone from both houses gathering on the sand. Someone brought guitars, and Uncle David, surprisingly, revealed a beautiful singing voice. We roasted marshmallows, told stories, and laughed under the stars. As I looked around the circle of firelit faces, family, friends, and the blurry line between the two, I realized that my revenge plan had transformed into something entirely different. Instead of creating division, it had ultimately brought us together in a new way. Instead of proving my independence from my family, it had helped reshape my place within it. The final day of the retreat arrived with a bittersweet quality. The week had flown by, filled with activities both planned and spontaneous. The yacht tour had been a highlight, with even my seasickness-prone cousin Jason managing to enjoy it. The hike Michael led us on revealed spectacular views that had us all stopping for photos. Meals were shared, stories exchanged, bonds strengthened or formed anew. For our last evening, we planned a special dinner combining the best cooks from both groups. Mom's famous lasagna, Uncle Frank's grilled seafood, Michael's local vegetable dishes, and Aunt Karen's legendary chocolate cake. As we gathered around the extended dining table, every leaf inserted to accommodate our large group, I found myself filled with a sense of completion I hadn't expected when this all began. Uncle Frank stood to offer a toast, raising his glass to the assembled company. To Allison, he said, his eyes finding mine. Who taught us all that sometimes you have to create your own space when others won't make room for you? To Allison, everyone echoed, raising their glasses. I felt my cheeks warm with the unexpected attention. I'd like to propose a toast too, I said, standing. To family, not just the one we're born into, but the one we create around us. To making space for everyone at the table. To family, they responded. Later, as the evening wound down, I found myself on the deck with my parents, watching the last sunset of our retreat. The sky was painted in spectacular oranges and pinks, the ocean reflecting the colors in shimmering patterns. We've been thinking, Mom began, about next year's retreat. I tensed slightly, wondering if the lessons of this week were already fading. We'd like to do something like this again, she continued. Combining our groups, staying somewhere with enough space for everyone. And we want you to help plan it, Dad added. You've proven you have a talent for it. The simple acknowledgement of my abilities, the inclusion in future plans, these were the real victories, far more meaningful than any temporary revenge. I'd like that, I said honestly. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting its final golden light across the water, I felt a profound sense of peace. The pearl necklace Uncle Frank had given me at graduation caught the fading light, and I touched it reflexively, a reminder of how far I